What's up? The weekend is here, and that can mean just one thing. It's GameTrailers.com's Invisible Walls, episode 83. Today is all about all things Modern Warfare 2, one of the biggest games of the year. Have a lot to talk about, so many modes in that game, so many things to discuss. We do have a couple other games, actually one other game we're talking about today, and we'll get to that first before we get into Modern Warfare, but let's run around the horn here, let you know who's on the show. Marcus Beer, as always, to my left.
Bah humbug.
Christmas isn't here yet, bro.
I'm just bah humbugging, thank you.
We have Brooks Huber on the show today.
Cheers.
Ryan Stevens, as always.
Hello.
And we have a very special guest in here, our resident expert at Modern Warfare, Rohan Rivas.
Who isn't mic'd up right now, but he will be mic'd up when we do Modern Warfare in a bit.
Well, he had a mic a minute ago.
But we had to swap it.
Oh, Ryan, you took his mic.
Yeah, and his lunch money.
Rohan is the man at Modern Warfare. In fact, we went to the multiplayer event that they had here in LA, and he mopped up everyone from Infinity Ward. So the guy's definitely got some chops. Definitely the right guy to bring on the show. We got a lot to get to, so let's do it.
There's more.
All right, first we're going to talk about the one game on the show that isn't Modern Warfare 2, and that is Dark Void. Now, the game has been shown extensively. It's been at tons of different events. I've played it probably 3 times. Mm-hmm. We finally get a build of it in-house, and Brooks, you've been sort of running through it.
Yes.
What are your initial sort of overarching impressions?
I think it does a good job. It's a lot of fun. So far, the vertical shooting, not too bad. And then it's got that mix of third-person shooting, too, when you're on foot. So.
Now, the vertical shooting almost looks like a bit of a sham to me, because sure, you're supposed to be vertical, but the way they work with the perspective is it looks just like any other third-person shooter with a cover system, with the exception of the fact that you're hanging from the cover. How does that actually affect gameplay?
You know what's funny? I'm a third of the way through the game, and I've only had like 2 scenarios in the game that really focus on that whole vertical scale, where you're like scaling a cliffside or something, and it focuses on that.
So really, it's not like the whole game isn't climbing uphill.
Definitely
There's just
not.
little
No.
parts of it.
They like to show it a lot in the trailers. But
Well, yeah, they've kind of tagged the game as like the vertical shooter. That's sort of their catchphrase.
I think that may just be they may have just made a game, and they just felt like they had to like put some little gimmicky thing in there. But
Yeah,
I mean,
they
it's
want-
got
Is it
jetpacks,
gimmicky, though?
It's got flying. Well, even when I saw when that game was debuted at Captivate like 08, 07, I don't even remember.
Yeah.
And I remember them saying it, and I was being like, this doesn't really click with me as being a special thing. So I think it may be some misplaced faith. I mean, it's interesting, but you know, it like Brooks said, he's only ran into 2 parts. I don't really
that really
think it's
focus
the
on that
big
element.
push.
Yeah. Other than that, you're in these very big open environments, and you could just, at the press of a button, just launch your jetpack and just go at it. And the hover mechanic works pretty well, where you're just like floating above them about 30, 40 yards and just pegging them.
Have you hijacked any UFOs yet?
I have hijacked a UFO. That was a lot of fun. It kind of does the whole Metroid thing, where it throws you in the very beginning of the game. You have access to like all the cool weapons and the really cool jetpack.
And it takes them away.
And then it backtracks and shows you the prologue. So yeah, in the beginning I did hijack a UFO, and it's just it's a pretty simple mini game where you're tailing around it left and right.
And actually controlling the UFO is pretty solid. Because these guys made, Blazing Angels?
They did
Yeah.
Crimson Skies.
Crimson Skies.
Crimson
Yeah.
Skies.
Those guys.
Very good game.
Yeah, the controls are the exact same whether you're flying a UFO or you're controlling the jetpack, and I found it to be very simplistic, and I was able to jump right into it. It's pretty easy.
Now the jetpack, can you use it at any time?
Yes, you can.
So it's like Gears with a jetpack?
It's kind of bittersweet because I've accidentally like fired that thing off when I didn't mean to, and I was in cover, and you just flies head first into the nearest wall. Game over.
Well, you're also out of cover at that point, and they can shoot you, right?
Yeah. So that's what's really cool about it.
So what's the point of the jetpack? Is it kind of like the vertical shooting in that there's just specific parts of the game where you really use the jetpack and otherwise it's kind of pointless?
You definitely do use it in, like I said, in the big open areas. I mean, you have to. But when you're just like in a random battle, it's up to you if you want to use it or not. I find it to be pretty effective because then you have that height.
How are the
them.
enemies at shooting you when you have the jetpack?
They're pretty
employed?
good. Yeah. I mean, they have jetpacks too, so it's a...
Oh, they do?
Yes.
All of them?
Not all of them. A handful of them. That's how the enemies vary. You got like the big bosses that are kind of like the boomers from Gears of War, and then the smaller infantry, which is just like, you just tear through those guys.
Are the jetpacks, like, do they explode? Like, are they, like, super vulnerable? Like, if you get shot in the back, is it worse than
No,
just
it's
being
nothing
shot?
like that.
Okay.
No.
What about the time duration? Can you fly as long as you want, or is it like Tribes where you have this sort of finite amount of time?
They limit, you have a boost meter, so if you are hovering, you can only hover for so long, and then when your boost meter's out, he just gently falls to the ground. But that thing refills pretty quickly, so you could stay in the air as long as you want.
Now, what's the story behind this game?
You control Will, who is a cargo pilot. The story takes place in the 1930s.
Okay.
And yeah, it takes place back in the day. And he is flying through the Bermuda Triangle for whatever reason or another, probably taking a shortcut. And he has a small crew with him. They experience a thunderstorm. And then while they're flying through that Bermuda Triangle, a UFO kind of like shanks him. And they go down head first, spiraling right into the void.
And then what's the object? To get back to the real world?
Yeah,
or?
his first incentive is to like get his plane working again. And while he's exploring this strange land in the void, he comes across the human race known as the Survivors. And apparently they've been at war with this alien race called the Watchers.
That's a little bit like Lost.
Yes.
A lot like
any
Lost,
polar bears?
actually.
Excuse me?
Any polar bears?
I haven't seen any polar bears yet. Let's not rule it out.
Any time machines?
No time machines, no, nothing
Nikola
like that.
Tesla.
Yeah, it's a weird little crack in time where they're fighting. So you got these aliens who have like the superior technology, and they invent these weapons, and that's where the jetpack came from. So you get you fight them with a mix of fire-based guns and then their own like plasma guns.
So you don't have any weapons on your own. You have to find all the weapons that you use.
Yes. Yeah, but you can pick up whatever downed weapon.
So what are the shooting mechanics like?
It's exactly just like Gears of War. I mean,
With alien weaponry, obviously.
yes. Yeah. I mean, there's no advantage I've found using your weapons as opposed to using their own weapons, but you can upgrade as you go through at certain locations. So as you go through and you kill guys, you collect these red orbs and use that as a currency, and you upgrade your weapons, make them more powerful.
There's a shop.
There is I wouldn't call it a shop. It's more like a suitcase or something that you come across.
Now, does that give you alternate firing options, or does it just increase the power of...
It increases the power and accuracy. I haven't really seen anything major like Ratchet and Clank or something.
Now, are there going to be any multiplayer modes in this?
I haven't explored any multiplayer because I am playing on
Do you guys remember if they've mentioned that or not?
Doesn't ring a bell.
Yeah, because I know multiplayer games where you can fly are
I'm
pretty
pretty sure they
rare.
said
Yeah.
they were focusing on the single player.
Yeah, that's
that
right.
old line that we've heard a million
Uh-huh. I was at the event, and what they had set up at the event I recently went to a couple of weeks ago was people were just playing for time and score.
Okay.
So that was the competition.
Are
they
most
had going.
levels still generally about going up or going down, or is it sometimes you are just transversing across?
So far, a third into the game, it is very generic third-person shooting. You are just
Mainly on flat ground.
a lot of times you're almost restricted to tunnels in the beginning as you're exploring the void, and then it kind of opens up and it'll give you one stage where you could do whatever you want in this open area, but then it goes back to like
That's what they did at E3
Tunnel
because
system.
everybody's saying, "Oh, this is a vertical shooter," and I'm thinking that's more like a bullet point on the box to try and differentiate the game. But the version they showed at E3 was this huge sort of like crater with mini levels to fly up to and hop around on. There was there wasn't anything by way of cover. It was just tootle around with a jetpack. The feel I got from it is that movie, The Rocketeer, that campy's early 1990s movie. Jennifer Connelly is hot, by the way.
yeah, she is.
So far, positive impressions?
Positive impressions, mostly impressed. There's a few little technical glitches.
Would you
I
say it's a
find,
game?
too. Yes.
Okay.
I would say it's definitely a video game
With rocket packs,
with rocket packs, 100% pure rocket
but no
packs.
Jennifer Connelly.
Unfortunately, no.
Epic fail.
Rangers lead the way! Move!
All right, next comes our big old block of Modern Warfare 2. Obviously, an incredibly hyped game throughout the last couple years after the success and critical acclaim that the first Modern Warfare received from pretty much everybody. Everybody here has had a chance to play through it, in some cases multiple times. I think we're prepared to talk about the game at this point. First, we're going to talk about the campaign. I think my first sort of comment about the campaign is it is very similar to the last game. Lots of scripted events. I do like the fact that you have a lot more open areas this time. You have a lot more latitude in how you can tackle each mission. You're not just kind of stuck in this little like 15-yard wide shoot all the time and being shoved down by your squad mates.
I like how they start. They actually, mind you, they do start off where you're traversing the back alleys, and it is quite narrow, but it gives you a feel for it, and then it gradually opens up. And yes, I've played it. I played the PC version.
Marcus has
but I haven't bought it.
broken the seal.
I haven't bought it. I mean, you raised a good point that I should play it to be able to be able to talk about it in a qualified manner. And I mean, I was a big fan of the first game, and I love the single player on the first game especially. I like what they're doing on this. A lot of scripted events.
Yeah, that's what I'd want to. Like, you don't really. I didn't really feel like I was actually just going around shooting guys until the favela. Because in the beginning, boot camp doesn't count.
Right.
Early level, you're on you shoot some people across the way. You're on the back of the Humvee or
50
whatever.
cal.
And then the scripting is so directed that even when you do have a little bit of just shooting dudes there, I mean, the level's over in like 2 minutes. Then when you're doing the ice level they showed at E3,
Cliffhanger, yeah.
Yeah.
which it made me a little upset that I'd already seen the ice climbing because it's really cool, but I'd
Yeah,
already
they did
seen
kind of
it.
spoil one of the cooler parts of the
Yeah.
game.
I
when
mean,
they showed
It's
the
cool though if you just hang on there, you can see the ice begin to fracture. And
Well, how about
everything.
this? I mean, they kind of spoiled the whole freaking game in hindsight, right? The
Yeah.
launch trailer they put out like the day before the game came out. I can't
Showed
believe
the last couple
I
things.
can't believe the stuff they put in that trailer.
But the whole ice level with all the kind of sneaking mode, the plan B was my first, like, oh my god, like, let's go to plan B was just a great section. But then right away you're on the snowmobiles. I
Right.
still didn't even feel like I was playing a first-person shooter until I got to the favela. And then there, it's like, you gotta capture this guy, you gotta capture this guy. And I thought there really was like a, I didn't realize there was kind of a leash on
Right.
him.
Yeah.
And I was getting killed like left and right. But that was the first point where I was like, I'm gonna take this slow, play it like a first-person shooter game, and now I'm like, okay, it's very directed, very scripted. It actually reminds me a lot of Uncharted in some ways,
Yeah,
with like
very
every little
much so.
moment
Yeah.
being like massaged, like some
Something
Kobe
important.
beef.
Yeah.
But
Very little downtime.
but that was the first part where I actually felt like, and that's a little ways in. That was the first part where I actually felt like I'm shooting dudes.
Yeah,
it's a
yeah.
first-person shooter.
That's the end of Act 1.
Yeah.
Like, you felt like that at the end of Act 1. Like, that's pretty crazy. And the game begins on rails, essentially,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
kind of, like, took me back a little bit.
I love the plan B being like a running joke throughout the whole game too. Like there's several instances where they're like switch to plan B and you're like, okay, I get that.
Yeah.
First of all, let's talk about if you guys think the campaign in this one is better or worse than the last game and why.
I think it's a step back from
Oh, yeah?
realism.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh, yeah.
Modern Warfare, the first Modern Warfare, Call of Duty 4, to me was Modern Warfare. It had those big set pieces. Not to say that Modern Warfare 2 didn't. However, you didn't feel like you were part of a battlefield
Yeah.
in Modern Warfare 2. It was more personal, more isolated, and it was a step back from realism, more towards like a Jerry Bruckheimer action summer movie. to
I
me.
feel like in the first game too, they were really concerned about showing off a lot of their tech, like bullet penetration and how you could shoot through walls and still kill guys. And I think they presented a lot of scenarios in that game that allowed you to make use of that. You used your night vision goggles a lot more, and a lot more of the gear, so to speak, that Modern Warfare sort of presented. You use it a lot more than you do in this one. So I can kind of see why they're like, okay, well, let's introduce this stuff in the first one, and then let's just kind of assume that people know how that stuff works in the second.
But then you go on a snowmobile, and I was like, oh wait, I can shoot while I'm on this.
Yeah.
And I like kind of just haphazardly shot my gun, and like 4 people fell off their snowmobiles, and I
Yeah.
was like, yeah, not the most realistic.
And for anyone
little
who's
part
ridden a
of the
real
game.
snowmobile, like you have to have both arms on the steering wheels, or you get thrown the hell
Especially
off.
when you bump it through the tundra. I mean, it did made me feel about reminded me of the forest chase through Endor in Return of the Jedi.
Yeah,
I was
point.
I was expecting some little Ewoks coming along. No, those I would have shot.
And then jump at the end. I'm like, am I Keanu Reeves in Speed or something like that?
Yeah, I was expecting the Dukes of Hazzard horn to go off. But I think the scripting does take you out of it. I think the other thing that's sort of like just detached me a little too much was the fact that you keep on jumping around from character to character. I do enjoy
Those
it,
games
you
have
know,
always been that way, obviously.
but I mean, I think it's something they could get away, that they could move away from, because if you are, they could create all those missions and you could effectively play the same character and just
yeah.
go through different timelines.
I don't think it meant as much in Modern Warfare 2 as it did in the previous games, because Infinity Ward has been doing that multiple character scenario throughout all of their games. Call of Duty,
Right.
Call of Duty 2.
No, I'm not disagreeing with you there.
No, but I
just say
think it
it's,
also, you never build that attachment.
You-
I mean,
no,
it doesn't
exactly.
help
Not
that
at
you
all.
hardly ever see the character, but you just never really build this attachment to the people that you're playing as.
You're more like, what army am I with right now?
Yeah, you're trying to figure out which side
you
you're
build
fighting.
you build no attachment to your teammates either. You don't feel part of a squad, which is
Well, I mean,
Well,
Soap
no,
with
but
the whole first
I
game.
think that is definitely very attached. I mean, he is their anchor for the series now.
But I mean, you go by. I'm going back to, for example, Rainbow Six, where you knew who
You'd do that, wouldn't you?
I would do that because that was a genre-defining game. That, if you look at it, a lot of these games have evolved from what Rainbow Six did and have refined it
Right,
in
they're
different
just
ways.
a little more twitchy.
They're a little more twitchy and a little more free-flowing. So, but with Rainbow Six, you started off and you have your team and you know what your team was, and that's the thing. You felt part of a unit, and that for me has always been something that's been lacking from Infinity Ward games. And the only other thing that I'm missing from this particular game is the friggin' lean option.
Yeah.
I mean, any soldier, you talk to any combat soldier, and the fact that they can't lean around a corner and pop somebody off is a big disadvantage in single player, and it brings a lot to multiplayer
Is that
as well.
available on PC?
No.
There's
There's
no
no
lean
lean.
option.
No lean
I
option.
find that surprising, personally. But you
Also,
also
no
have to
console or dedicated servers. But
but you have to remember too, is like these environments that they've created, the Geo leans toward the ability to duck and go prone. Like
you can,
that's-
but you can duck and go prone in any game.
But I agree with you.
I mean,
I agree
you know,
with
you need duck, you need to go prone, which is standard, but you need to be able to peek around a corner, especially when
Yeah.
you know you've got all these guys coming at you. You just
I
don't
think
want
that
to
plays
go
to
full
Rohan's
body.
point that it's not as realistic. But I also think
the
that the game was
settings.
built around the fact that you can't lean, and you don't really need to lean. I mean, there was no point in the game where I was like, oh, shit, if I could have leaned there, it would have
But
changed
at no point in
things.
the game were you ever sedentary enough to lean. You
Right.
were always moving.
I never needed
you
to
were
lean in the
always
game.
moving.
You're always moving, but you're always guided. And that's the thing. You know, you made the comment about on the leash. You feel like you're being tugged along.
Not
You-
as
you-
bad as the last game, I don't think.
I think this one's a little more scripted.
You think?
Yeah, I think the
Well, I
past
think
one had
you say it's more scripted because there's more elements to it. In the last game, there was just long sections of the game where you just shot people.
Yeah, exactly. And objectives are a lot more clear, I guess. Also, I think with the whole realism thing, in the last one, we were pretty, other than like the ship level, everything was pretty much you're in a war-torn place. You know, this time you're in a war-torn place, but they kind of turned that on the side with.
Well, I
you know,
love fighting in America.
Yeah, I mean,
I mean,
we're
as an
talking about
American,
that.
it definitely inspired something inside me.
Hands down, like that was for me personally, having played like almost every first-person shooter in the past 10 years. That hit me like no other game. Like,
And to me, the part that hit harder was the part where you're in the neighborhoods, not the part where you're
Oh.
in DC and you see all the monuments. It's fighting someplace where that you're familiar with, and someplace that you could remember as a kid. Or
That-
And they did a
But
good
that
job
always
of
makes a difference.
being a
does.
good open area too. Like, I mean, I remember just like, you know, going into the bank and just like, this does look like a bank and stuff like that. You know, as opposed to like in the past games where it's like, this place has been bombed for 5 years.
Right.
Everything's
Exactly.
just
and
kind
it
of
gave me a charge, like when the strikers following you down the street and they start targeting guys. You're like, yeah, get out of my house, bitch. Like it just changes how I looked at that whole section of the game.
I think that's always a very smart move in games. It's one I'm a big fan of. It worked well with Fallout, with Fallout 3, with, with Washington, and you get to see the monuments and stuff. But I love that, and I think more people should actually take a note from Infinity Ward there. I know World in Conflict, the RPG, the RTS from a couple of years ago, that did the same thing. America being invaded. It was the whole Red Dawn, Patrick Swayze.
you
Yeah,
know what
they-
Medal of Honor is going to do next?
But
So-
it's cool. I mean, it gives you this sense of attachment, this sense of familiarity that is missing when you're doing Normandy or something.
Okay, so before we quit on the campaign, let's go around the horn. Which did you like better, Call of Duty 4, Modern Warfare 2, Marcus, the campaign?
First one.
First one, Rohan,
I'm going to go with the first one.
Ryan.
Oh, I really don't know if I can say it because
You finished it, right?
no, my Xbox keeps blowing the fuses in my
Oh,
apartment.
great.
Yeah.
It's that good.
But no, I've made serious headway into it. They seem different, even though they're very, very similar. I don't know. They're both really, really, really good. Sometimes I wish I was just maybe shooting dudes. Sometimes, but then sometimes that gets boring. I don't know.
Can you give us a verdict before Modern Warfare 3 comes out?
I'll try.
Oh, wait, that's
Have you
already
seen
out according to
have you
The
seen
Onion.
article. Yeah.
So you no verdict. You're not going to give us one yet.
No.
I'm going to go with the second one because I sort of grew tiresome in the first game of just constantly shooting like 8,000 dudes, and I like the variety in this one. I didn't feel like there was any points in the game where I was like, okay, I'm going to take a break. I literally played the game straight through from beginning to end with no breaks. And
But I heard there's no rap song at the end of this one.
But there isn't
well,
a
there's some
commercial.
cool stuff at the end of the
Okay.
game, though. So definitely make sure you stick around after the credits to check it out. All right, now we're going to move on to multiplayer, both cooperative and competitive. First, let's talk about the big new feature, which is Spec Ops. I think everybody, when they first heard it was only 2 people, were probably a little disappointed. Now that we've all played it, how do you guys feel about it?
I did a complete 180 because I went to the Spec Ops event and I was like, oh, this looks okay. It's cool. It's taking some stuff from the games, but now when you have that very specific goal and you can climb in that goal, it's really, really effective, especially when they kind of limit the arena. Still not the biggest fan of the Breach,
Yeah.
that one in particular, but even the boot camp, just doing that one again, or Favela, or the whatchamacallit, the AC-130.
AC 130.
130.
And what's
I just want to say
interest-
120.
and what's interesting
it's
about
awesome.
that Spec Ops mission is based off of a Call of Duty 4 map.
Oh, yeah.
like,
Right.
to a T, pretty much.
The missions where one guy's in the sky and the other guy is on the ground freaking awesome.
Yeah, I like looking up and seeing like my partner in this plane, like
Just
20,000
dropping
feet up in the air,
bombs.
just like dropping bombs in front of me. It's a really incredible feeling, and I think
It's really refreshing. I've never played anything like
and
that
if that
before.
was crowded with 4 people, would it have the same effect? Probably not.
It definitely
You
kind
know,
of turns
I don't
into
know.
like a buddy cop movie while you're playing. It's
I
just
agree.
you and the one other guy. You can coordinate a lot better than you can with like multiple people. Obviously, we'll never know what it's like to play Spec Ops with more than 2 people, but to me, I think they hit kind of the perfect stride.
I agree.
And there's great variety, and they've pretty much confirmed that Spec Ops can be part of DLC.
I'm sure it
not
can
just
be.
multiplayer maps.
And
so.
Infinity Ward has a really interesting opportunity to kind of change the DLC space, in my opinion, to release packs that offer maybe like 3 new Spec Ops, 2 new multiplayer maps.
Yeah,
You know,
and I'm
kind-
sure that's why they don't have dedicated servers for the PC.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah, that's actually a good point.
Just as a quick note, I think this, people are always like, it's the year of the this, the year of the this. I think it's really been the year of the co-op experience
Yeah.
and like custom made. I mean, Firefight.
I like too how
Uncharted,
both
the
players.
Resident Evil
Borderlands.
5.
Yeah.
You know, I mean that was at the
Just
beginning
just
of
as
the
a
year.
side note, I think it really has co-op has really stepped up.
Co-op has always been something that any game that's done it really well has sold really well, and now everybody's got a great connection. Co-op it's the way games are going. I think that's where single player will get less and less, and you'll see more and more people jumping into co-op. Any game that really doesn't have online co-op anymore, and I've seen a couple of demos this week where people are like, oh, we only have split screen. Or
No,
it's like,
we're concentrating on the single player portion of the game.
it's like seriously, get with the program. Online co-op is the way forward, especially for these sort of games. It just takes it to a whole new level that you don't have to put up with some of the you put up with in multiplayer.
Yeah.
It's you and a couple of friends, and you're up against the computer, and you're working as a team, and that's phenomenal.
I like too how you can set it to different difficulty settings. So if you're playing with someone who's just figuring it all out, they can play on an easier setting. You can play it on the harder one. You don't get the stars for the harder one,
Right.
But still, it makes it fun and engaging for both people, I think. And I think that was really important to make sure that it's something that you could play, over the long term, or if a friend of yours finally picks up the game and you've been playing it for a month already, and you're not going to be bored out of your mind watching him get his ass kicked. So.
And when you're talking about like how the Call of Duty 4 kind of talk to maybe like the tech aspects, here it's like they can talk to like an individual game aspect and really shine it, but it never feels like a masturbatory kind of like mini game or something.
I feel like it
like
speaks
that.
more to strategy too. I feel like you really have to talk to each other. If you don't have a headset, I don't even know how you get through some of the missions in Spec Ops without a headset.
Oh yeah, it's impossible. It's
And I
literally-
think that's it. The communicative sort of element of it is what I love, the camaraderie of it. When you complete a mission on Hardened or Veteran, like, it's like, yeah, like you get that nice charge and
Yeah, I was doing a state takedown last night on Veteran, and the coordination was amazing. Like it's that partner system that just works so.
yeah, when
incredibly
it all
well.
works, it makes you feel really good when you
Yeah.
accomplish something.
Can I just ask, because is there anything past 3 stars though? I mean, there's the thrill of the game, but is there anything like rewarding past getting the 3 stars per?
Not that I'm aware of.
No,
Okay.
neither am I.
I have to say, I do think that Infinity Ward and Activision have missed a trick here, which is kind of, I think they've cut their nose to spite their face with this whole lack of console, lack of dedicated server, lack of mod capability, because especially if they're trying, they want to have lots of DLC coming. They could have gone the Blizzard route like they're doing with StarCraft, where people can create their own maps, they can sell them online.
Yeah.
Blizzard gets a share, the person gets a share. I mean, there's a way to keep this game going for another 3 or 4 years, or however long, and create brand new content to
Right,
keep
but
it
how
fresh.
long has Blizzard been working on its game, and how long did Infinity Ward have to make this game?
Also, Activision
that's
doesn't want to
pretty
cannibalize its own
complicated.
sales. when
Exactly.
Well, no,
Modern
I think
Warfare
I think it's
3
one. I
comes
think it's
out.
one of those things that it would help keep the franchise going. I don't think it would be a negative thing to have lots of DLC options for people to evaluate. I mean, you look, that's
Oh,
that's
no,
like,
I
you
mean,
know,
hey,
I agree with
let's
you,
face
but I
it,
just
it's
think
bull. No one's arguing that it's not bull.
I just think they've actually missed the trick to actually make some, dare I say, some extra money, but also provide a lot of really good content and encourage modders. Because let's face it, Counter-Strike came out of Half-Life.
Yeah.
And you can imagine
Well,
how some of
but
the
they don't-
PC
they
community
don't- wait,
can
wait,
create some
modders.
The
great
modders,
stuff.
the dark side of modding is happening though, because there's already people selling aimbots and other bull for Modern Warfare,
Well, unfortunately, you get
and
that
it's
in-
been out for what, like 8 hours or something for PC. At
Well,
this
I mean,
point.
it was it was cracked for the 360 version and was out 2.5 weeks ago.
Yeah.
UAV online. Throwing a stun grenade.
All right, let's talk about competitive multiplayer. We're starting to run out of time, and there's still a lot to get to. I think we can all say that it's an evolution, not a revolution. But again, what other shooter right now has the perks, has the leveling system that Call of Duty 4 and Modern Warfare 2
It's
have?
Uncharted 2 tried to do it. They did
Right.
an okay job, but it's definitely a very basic form of what Call of Duty 4 was to
Yeah.
some extent.
I mean, Uncharted still probably isn't to the level that
No.
Call of Duty 4 was.
No,
and that
not
was
at all.
2 years ago.
Well, let's also remember that Uncharted is a different kind of game. I mean,
But
it
they
is-
did have
but-
the boosters,
No,
which are perks.
they do
Yeah,
have it in
they're
multiplayer. I
boring.
think Uncharted
Yeah, they're
Uncharted 2
very
deserves
fun.
the props for actually trying something different within a different genre.
Do any
I
of
mean,
you guys still play Uncharted 2 online? I lasted a couple weeks,
I got
I guess.
to like level 46 out of I think 60 or 55 or
borrowing my
something.
copy right
Yeah.
now, so I haven't been playing it because I'm still killing demons.
I
for
played
their
it
souls.
for a couple weeks.
It's good.
But it's good,
You know,
but it's not.
I dropped my PS3 controller the second that Modern Warfare came out.
Yeah.
Modern Warfare 2. And
So what do you think now, Rohan? You're the king of online with this game. You're one of the few people that can go into these games with all the clan guys and clean up. So I'm really interested to hear your perspective on the competitive multiplayer.
It's different. It's different. If you've played Modern Warfare, this one is definitely different because of the kill streaks. They changed the game completely. The
Do you think it
multiplayer-
unbalanced it? Because when I was playing it for review, I mean, there were points where you just had to hide in a house for like 10 minutes.
The pace is different.
Seriously, you're just standing there like,
No.
when is it going to stop raining missiles?
It gets a little chaotic, especially if you're playing on Ground War, which is the 18-person game setting. It's war, like in a game environment, the pace is slower, in my opinion. It's more frantic, but slower because you have to crawl.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
really have to crawl. If you pop up, you're dead.
Oh, yeah.
Essentially, been playing a lot of team deathmatch because it's a little bit more relaxed. Because
That's
it's-
almost always what I end up playing.
Yeah.
I'll try the other modes for a little while, and then I always go back to team deathmatch.
But going back to the kill streaks, it changes the multiplayer space completely because you're working as a tactician, sort of, pacing yourself, trying to accumulate those high-level kill streaks so you can get the AC-130, you can get the EMP, you can get the tactical nuke.
Yeah, I think again that's where coordination works because every team that you join, everyone has set up their kill streaks differently.
Yeah.
So you don't want to have everybody getting the same, reward for a three kill streak because
you can tell
But
that
you
Infinity
do
Ward
because you keep hearing UAV, UAV,
UAV online.
UAV.
you can tell that Infinity Ward is trying to promote the team-based atmosphere in their multiplayer space with this game. The care packages are awesome, in my opinion. Because
No, I
they
love them
work-
too.
They work for everybody.
Yeah, you can steal them from
You can
the enemy.
steal them, exactly. And there's a lot of opportunity there. But
I think what's most interesting to me about the competitive multiplayer is how these little changes have changed it so much. Because before I played it, I was like, this doesn't seem like it's going to really make much of a difference. But to me, it makes a world of difference.
it makes a world of difference. Like there's so many aerial vehicles now that it really promotes you to use, like RPGs and stingers and stuff like that. In the previous game, you would never equip that stuff really.
Just the turrets change strategy
yeah, and you
so
can
much.
pick them back up,
Right,
which I
and
thought
move 'em.
was really kind of interesting.
Some of the feedback I've actually been seeing online and reading is that people are kind of frustrated with the kill streaks and the bonuses that you get because it's a lot of what's happening from what I'm reading on several different forums is that 2 or 3 really good players clean up an entire game. Everybody else spends their time getting dead, and as soon as they respawn, boom, the UAVs come in. And
It's also a self-perpetuating thing because as you get the kill streak, you get something that's going to give you another kill streak.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's for sure.
So
Well, I think one thing you keep in mind is that when you go online, you get your ass kicked. I mean, that's all there is to it. Like, we're used to it. You have to find a group of people you can play with that are at the same skill level as you. And I don't think the matchmaking has really
No, there's
done a
no
great
rhyme.
job
There's
so
no
far.
rhyme or reason to
the
it.
matchmaking doesn't work. There's no dedicated servers where people can set up and practice and and really sort of get their tactics together, which is a key component. I mean,
Well, you
being able-
can. You
can
can
do
set up
private
private
matches
games and lock
for-
people out and invite people. I mean, you can do all that stuff.
But
but-
as soon, the learning curve is so steep. If you are a newbie, and there are going to be 10 to 15 million newbies joining this because
I need to get
their
on and
friends,
play.
yeah, their friends played the original, and they saw the original, and they had a little bit of fun with that. But if you're going in green, you need to realize that the first 10, 15 hours of your multiplayer experience, you're going to be respawning a lot and not doing much
Well,
else.
also people that, not just newbies, but people who played maybe 4 and skipped World at War, like they'll be able to jump into the game, but there's been people that have been playing for nonstop for 2 years, you know,
yeah.
as opposed to the people who
Yeah.
played it for maybe like 6 months or something like that.
But I mean, there is something to that, to the enjoyment, because I know when we were at the review event, there was probably 30 journalists there to play the game, and we started playing multiplayer at noon, and we literally played multiplayer for 11 hours straight, and I didn't even think twice about stopping. But during the first part of the day, like my scores would always be in the top 2 or 3 on my team. As the day wore on and the journalists started leaving, the Infinity Ward guys started sitting in. And at first, I think they were taking it a little easy on us, but by the end, when it was me and like 2 other journalists left and all Infinity Ward guys, like I was just getting housed. I mean, I would be lucky to get 4 kills in a round, and they'd have like 30.
You should have set your death streak to summon Rohan.
That will be in Modern Warfare
come
3.
through the
It's
window.
Rohan achievement.
On a zip line with an MP5. Just like, just take him out.
Cigar
You're the
in
only
his
one
mouth.
who's-
Smash through the hotel glass. Rohan is here.
You
throw
got
my cigar
revast,
out the window.
bitch.
So I can definitely see the frustration, but I also think if you have a good group of people on your friends list and you can get a game of 12 people, even if you have 3 or 4 guys that you don't know.
Honestly, everybody is playing this game right now.
My
And
whole
if you're
friends list is Modern
and
Warfare
if
2.
you're playing this game, odds are, hopefully, you have friends that are playing this game. So, I mean,
What's that?
who knows? But
If it
But
stops
overall-
people going to watch Twilight, I'm down with it.
Убить заложников! Clear. We're clear.
Oh, so let's just go around. We've kind of wrapped up all the discussion at this point.
Go around the horn.
Let's go around the horn one last time and just sort of give your overall impression on whether you're disappointed, impressed, or kind of neutral on the game as a whole. Now, Marcus, you haven't had a chance to play a lot of the modes
I haven't
yet.
played a lot, but I also think we should say which versions we played, because I played
Right.
the PC version, and let's face it, that's where Call of Duty started.
Yep.
And I will say that it does feel on certain aspects of it. I've been there, done that before, especially on single player. I like a lot of what they're doing with the little bits. Those little cinematic bits. I feel like I'm being led. Do I think it's the best game of ever, or the best game of
Well, I didn't
the
ask that,
decade?
but-
No, I'm seeing a lot of people saying this is the best game of the decade. I'm not buying into that.
Oh, the decade?
It's-
Hell no.
I would say it's a
Pedal.
I would say it's a bloody good shooter, but it's not everything it was cracked up to be.
Okay. Rohan.
single player, I think, is a step back. I think it's amazing. Don't get me wrong. I think it's amazing. However, I think Infinity Ward is trying to do something new with their fiction, and I don't know if it's working for them. I think it's definitely going somewhere uncharted, in my opinion. I have no pun intended. But
Are they upping the gears of war?
yeah, who knows what they're going to do with the third one, but it's going to be different. Multiplayer, I don't think any multiplayer first-person game is going to be able to touch it for a long time.
Well, they still can't touch Call of Duty 4.
Exactly.
So.
I think people are going to be playing this until Modern Warfare 3 comes out.
Battlefield
definitely.
Bad Company 2. Didn't you hear?
2011.
I love it. I know I'm going to be playing the multiplayer. Will I play through the single player again? Maybe in 6 to 8 months on Veteran. Who knows? But Spec Ops for me is where it's at as well. I think that they've changed the game and revolutionized the co-op with small bite-sized chunks that are easy to get into, easy to get out, and fun to play again. So
Stevens.
I kind of disagree with Marcus. It is exactly what I expected. I expected it to be a really solid sequel to Call of Duty 4. Spec Ops, big surprise for me personally. I'm really enjoying it. Really does feel like a new game, and it's not crappy. That was my other fear. I kept thinking of Splinter Cell.
Definitely not crappy.
Splinter Cell. What was the third Splinter Cell? Not
Pandora
Pan-
tomorrow. No.
Pandora tomorrow was second, but
Second.
that one's co-op was they were 4 minutes long. You
Yeah.
know, it was a little eh. Single player, especially with what we had seen from E3, it's been what I expected. A little more scripted, but I'm not overly surprised by that. Multiplayer, I'm definitely a little rusty, but it's not stopping me from jumping in there and summoning my UAVs when I can get 3 or 4 kills in a row.
For me, I enjoyed it a lot more than Call of Duty 4, and I loved Call of Duty 4. Again, I think the variety is a big thing for me. It's after you've played shooters for so many years, it's I don't feel like I need to sit there for 30 minutes hiding behind a rock waiting for dudes to pour out of a building until I can mow 50 of them down again and again. So I really like the variety in the campaign. I enjoyed the campaign a lot more. I think the story's kind of bull, in all honesty. I mean, it's not terrible, but I don't think it really does a good job of making you care, and it's kind of difficult to follow. But as far as the action and what you're playing in the game, I really loved it. Spec Ops, love it, love it. Really shocked and surprised that with 2 people it works that well. Multiplayer, I mean, I'm surprised how much the tweaks change it, but at the same time, it hasn't drastically changed it. But when you have the best multiplayer in the industry already that people are still trying to catch up to, that's not a bad thing. So overall, I definitely enjoyed Modern Warfare 2 more than Modern Warfare 1. Both great games. Definitely recommend you go out and buy it.
We've sent a strong message with this attack, Makarov.
That was no message. This is a message.
All right, I think we'd be remiss if we didn't at least mention it. The big controversy, we've all had a chance to experience it now, the airport scene. I guess should we spoil it?
Well, let's face it, it's
Spoiler
on the,
warning.
Spoiler warning.
Spoiler alert if you've been living under a rock. But it's been everywhere. It's all over the tabloids in the UK. The scene has been recorded and has been put on the internet, and it hit Fox News. Which was not a surprise.
So the scene is you're undercover with the terrorists. They go into an airport in Russia and they basically kill dozens and dozens of innocent people, some of which that are crawling away in pain, some leaning against the wall bleeding.
It's gratuitous. It is gory as hell. I'm not going to say it's gratuitous, but I mean, it's gory as hell.
It's shocking.
I think it's the fact that you can actually play, and you can. I mean, it's one of those things that we discussed this earlier, that you can actually not shoot anybody and watch everybody else do all the shooting. And
Real quick, did you shoot anyone, Marcus?
No.
Did you shoot anyone, Rohan?
No.
Did you shoot anyone, Ryan?
Mercy killings mainly.
I killed no one either. So nobody here really killed anyone.
But you
No,
don't
I
get.
killed a lot of
You
did.
don't get pinged for
Mercy
that.
killings.
But you don't get pinged for it. But I think it's one of those ones where it's a little, it doesn't really add a huge amount to the story. It seemed
They
more
didn't
for
need it.
shock effect.
To
I think
me-
it could have been a cutscene.
Right. They could have shown them walking in, a herd of people running away. You didn't even have to show them shooting them. You could just show the look on his face as he's firing the gun into the crowd of people. Mission accomplished.
Yeah, I
you
think-
don't need anything more than that to realize he's a.
Yeah, it was too much on this one, and I think especially in these very, very sensitive times, I think Infinity would have done us no favors as an industry by putting this out there, this particular scene out there, because it just doesn't add anything.
I think their placement of the scene in the campaign was jarring for me.
Because it's so early that
It's so early.
everyone's going to experience it.
Yeah.
I thought maybe if they would have shifted it later in Act 1, it might have been more impactful because you would have been more familiar with what's happening and not just been thrown into this situation. And you have absolutely no feelings for the character that you're playing either.
Right.
Like, who is this guy?
Yeah, you've played him once before, and all of a sudden he's now CIA undercover.
Yeah. I think it was the placement was very strange for me.
I just think it wasn't needed. I think you could have accomplished that in a lot of different ways without having to sort of force the player. And keep in mind, you can skip it. They give you the option when you boot up the game if certain scenes offend you. It doesn't say, do you have a problem with killing innocent human beings?
I mean, this is again, it's an M-rated game, and we know that it's only supposed to go to people over the 17 and over, but it is going to get into the hands of of kids, and that's where it just sets us up as an industry for another butt kicking from the right wing media.
But is it creating a dialogue for the right reasons?
I don't think
I
there
think
is,
it could have been
because
a lot more interesting if there was actual consequences. It is basically a cut scene, because what you do doesn't matter. You try to
It's a
shoot the
playable
terrorists. You
cutscene.
try to shoot the terrorists, and you get game over. And we were talking about this when the mics are off. If you're not shooting anyone, they don't respond to you either. And wouldn't that be weird? It would have actually been an interesting, difficult but interesting emergent.
Why does it have to go
story
on
chapter.
so long?
You also can't run.
And also
Yeah.
so you can't get away from it. And also the person who set this up or whoever designed this scenario is a little bit evil. I mean, let's face it, like somebody had to sit there and be like, well, what would it be like if someone was crawling away from you, bleeding out of their mouth, and they just shot him in the back of the head? I mean, somebody had to sit there and brainstorm all those little elements
What
of
it
this, and that's
communicates
a
to
little.
me is maybe they had a whole sub-campaign as you playing as a terrorist, and at the last minute during their design, they were like, you know what, guys, we can't do this.
Well, this was in the first teaser, remember?
Yeah.
Anyway, I just want to. I think it's too much. Didn't need to be there, and that's why it just smacks of being gratuitous and doesn't do us any favors.
I think it was for publicity and to build a buzz.
I still
and it
think
wasn't-
that if they had done something with it, it could have been actually really interesting, putting hard decisions there. But it isn't a decision. It ends up being a slideshow you can look around.
There's no morality. There's no morality, either way.
And it is just a video game.
But it's a video game.
At the end of the
where-
day, it's a freaking video game.
It's a
not
video
real life.
game where, unfortunately, the right wing are going to look at this and say, you can play as a terrorist,
And
and
that's-
that's the words that came out of the Fox News anchor's mouth.
That's a direct hit, Hunter 2-1. Keep up the fire.
All right, that's going to do it for Invisible Walls, episode 83. I think it was a very good discussion. We haven't really done sort of a whole episode on one game, but I think it turned out pretty well.
Yeah, I
I think this is one game where it works because there's so much to talk about.
Activision
Rohan
Metal
is
Management is still
charming
evil.
company.
Rohan, welcome to the show, brother.
I'm looking forward to seeing his picture with Resident Evil 2 this week.
Maybe something new. This time. Who knows? Maybe I can.
Where's Mario Hat?
Oh, I did get it. It just came in the mail yesterday. So next week, everyone, the long wait is over. You'll finally get to see the opus of the Mario hat. Also, keep an eye out. The Spike Video Game Awards are coming up really soon. You're going to see a lot of stuff on the site for that. I think you guys are going to be happy about the nominees this year. I think they did a really good job selecting them, so be sure to check that out. Invisible Walls is out.